everybody, and welcome to the Other 99's Dragon's Maze set review. I'm Karsten.
And I'm Brianne.
And for those of you guys who have seen our past set reviews, you know how it will all work. But for those of you who don't know, we're going to first take a look at the honorable mentions, cards that we thought were just good in certain decks, but not necessarily everywhere. Then we'll take a look at the top 10 most relevant cards in Dragon's Maze. Not necessarily the most powerful, but the ones that we think will impact the format the most. And finally, we will take a look at the 10 maze runners individually. So let's get started with the honorable mentions. First off, we have the Clue Stones. They actually allow you to tap for colored mana in your decks, and you get to draw a card off of them. But I think these things are pretty solid.
Crisis Incubation is a card that I think a lot of people are going to underestimate. You can bounce it, and you're all thinking, oh, that's really not that great because aura removal isn't all that good. But you gotta remember it's in blue-green, which are colors that have a hard time finding any good removal. And a bounceable arrest isn't something that even mono-white gets.
Next we have Aetherling. Aetherling has the ability to make itself unblockable, which is definitely relevant. Plus it has the ability to dodge removal, which is also really fantastic.
Riot Control isn't anything special, but it is a fog that gains you life, and there are a lot of decks that would love to have another card that does anything along those lines.
A card that's really shaking up Standard right now is Blood Scrivener. A lot of people are talking about it. For us in Commander, it's okay. But with this card and Sire of Insanity, I can see all kinds of pressure decks. When you have a deck that makes everyone discard their cards, and if you're the guy with Blood Scrivener drawing extra cards for having no cards in your hand, that's going to give you a really big advantage in the end.
Crypt Incursion is a really cool graveyard hate spell. Now, I know it doesn't affect everyone's graveyards, but the fact that you're getting 3 life off of every creature card that you get means that not only is it good as graveyard removal, it's good just as some life gain against an aggro deck. So the fact that it's so versatile, I think to me makes it really good.
Master of Cruelties is gotta be the smallest demon I've ever seen. He's a 1/4, which is kind of weird to me personally. Master of Cruelties has first strike and death touch, which means he kills anything he deals damage to, which is really awesome. But the biggest thing people are going just crazy for is the fact that he just makes people's life totals become 1. And so there are a lot of people thinking of different ways to really get Master of Cruelties in there and just bring everyone's life total down to 1.
Next we have Breaking and Entering, and I'm honestly not a big fan of Breaking, but Entering is fantastic, because Rise from the Grave is 5 mana to get a creature, and Entering is basically letting you pay an extra red to give that creature haste.
Another card that a lot of people are just going crazy about, especially in Commander, is Blood Baron of Escapa. Now, Blood Baron of Escapa is no Serra Ascendant by a long shot, but it does have lifelink, which is fantastic. Plus it has protection from white and black, 2 of the biggest removal colors in Commander. The hard part is getting an opponent down to 10, but that's not too difficult if you're playing like Soren Markov.
Deputy of Acquittals isn't anything crazy, but the fact that he's such a handy little utility bear, he comes in, he bounces your dude that you just want to save from removal, or maybe you just need to flash him in to eat something in combat.
Runner Silent is Counterspell plus Silence, which is just really cool. This stops combo decks dead in their tracks, and which I see getting played in Control Commander decks all over the place here soon.
Dragon Shift is a card that Karsten and I have kind of agreed to disagree on because even though he's an Izzet fan, he doesn't like it. But I think it's just really awesome. I mean, I want to overload Dragon Shift. I can see a really cool Riku commander deck where you just use Riku to make a bunch of tokens and then you overload Dragon Shift and kill everyone with your army of 4/4 flying dragons.
Next up is Sin Collector, and I think that Sin Collector is kind of a card that's in an area that's really underplayed in EDH, and that's Targeted Discard. Targeted Discard really isn't very good in EDH as much because so many people play lots of recursion spells and can get their spells back. Sin Collector, it exiles it for good. It's not coming back.
Tristani Summoner is a 1/1 and she costs 7 mana, so that really sucks, but she gets you a lot of power and toughness, and she just begs to be flickered, and we know how much people are addicted to flickering their creatures in Commander, so we thought she deserved to be mentioned.
Wear and Tear, in my opinion, is a great card, but it's just kind of silly. Let's just take red, which destroys artifacts, and smack it onto white, which destroys enchantments, and there we go, we call it a card. Wear and Tear should be played in your white and red deck, because it's a really good spell, so not much to say there.
Turn and Burn, on the other hand, is a really cleverly designed split card, because you really wouldn't want to play either part by itself. But for 5 mana as an instant in blue-red, you are getting an instant speed spot removal spell. That's really great in colors that don't get removal.
Deadbridge Chant, I think a lot of people are underestimating it in Commander because, oh look, you choose the creature at random. I don't get to actually choose the creature. How relevant is that really? Every turn you're going to get another creature. Yes, it comes in at random, but you're going to get that value every single turn, which I think in a black-green deck, just recurring stuff over and over again to get sacked or to get sacked for Birthing Pod even, Deadbridge Chant has a lot of potential to be really good.
And my favorite honorable mention that I think could have been top 10 is Catch and Release. Now, unlike the rest of the split cards, I don't really think that you'd want to fuse Catch and Release, but I do think there are a lot of situations where you'd want to play one or the other. I think Release is amazing because for 6 mana, you're making everyone sacrifice 5 permanents, and if your deck is built around this, you're probably not going to sacrifice 5 permanents. Especially the fact that it hits Planeswalkers. There are so very few cards that affect Planeswalkers, and this is one of them. And then, of course, there is the cool thing where if you fuse Catch and Release, you can steal their permanent and then sacrifice it. But like I said, I really like this card for each individual side on its own.
And that is our honorable mentions. And now to our top 10 most relevant cards in Commander. Remember, these are our most relevant cards, not necessarily the most powerful cards. At number 10, we have Ral Zarek. Brown and I argued a little bit on this guy. I personally think Ral Zarek has a lot of potential to be great. A lot of people compare Ral Zarek to a Johnny Vengeance, and they're very similar cards. They both have the same converted mana cost. Their 3 abilities are even similar. They even have the same loyalty cost for each one. The thing is with Ral Zarek that gives him the edge, I think, is the fact that he gets to untap a target permanent. Especially with like mana rocks. If you have a creature that just attacked and you want to give it pseudo vigilance, you untap it with Ral Zarek. It's a +1 ability and it's just going to give you more and more value over time.
Whereas I think Ral Zarek, although he's aggressively costed and I can see him being good in other constructed formats, I think his abilities are kind of underwhelming. Yeah, his +1 ability is useful, but for every time there's a really swingy play you make with it, I think there's going to be the time where you're like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what I tap down, and I guess I'll untap this land or something. But I think compared to other Planeswalkers in Commander, where nearly everything they do is amazing and I want to do it, I don't get that from Ral Zarek, and I get that from other Planeswalkers.
Not all of his abilities are good all the time, but because they're good enough, he's going to see play.
We're just going to have to agree to disagree.
We'll just have to agree to disagree on that one.
At number 9, we have Ready and Willing. Ready makes your creatures indestructible. So, someone unfavorably blocks your creatures, bam, they're indestructible. Someone tries to play a Wrath, bam, your creatures are indestructible. Willing, someone swings at you to try to kill you, bam, you just gained a bunch of life. Someone swings at you with their dudes, bam, you just killed them because your creatures have Death Touch. You fuse it, and your creatures are just, no one wants to get in their way. They're indestructible, so there's no favorable combat trades. They have Death Touch, so there's really no favorable combat trades. I think all around in 3 colors that have really powerful creatures to turn sideways, that this card does everything that you want it to do.
At number 8, we have Far and Away. And a lot of people are going to look at this card and maybe scratch their heads like, that card is it's just an unsummon and it's just an edict. That's all it is. Having one unsummon in your deck and having one edict in your deck may not be very good. But having 2 of those spells printed on one card that you can fuse together at the same time really give you a lot of advantage. You get so much advantage out of just one card. Far and Away, we don't think it's necessarily the most exciting, most flashy split card, but it's definitely a split card that you should consider playing in your deck if you play the right colors for it.
At number 7, we have Plasm Capture, and we really debated where in this set review Plasm Capture should go. Should it be honorable mention? Should it be top 10? And we decided that even though it's very expensive, that people are going to love having Mana Drain. Yes, it's twice as much as Mana Drain, and extremely mana intensive. But there's so many people who want to live the dream of countering someone's 6 or 7 cost general, and then getting the mana for that to use for themselves, that it's great. Not to mention you're playing blue-green, so you probably have the mana for that quite easily. You're playing enough ramp, you can afford a 4-mana counterspell. I think people are gonna love Plasm Capture. I know I'm playing it in my casual deck at the very least.
At number 6, we have Legion's Initiative. If you're playing a Boros-themed or Boros Commander deck, this card fits in there perfectly, and its Wrath Insurance is the biggest thing. And you might just get an Anthem if you're playing a lot of red-white creatures. The only downside to Legion's Initiative is the fact that you have to exile it. But think about it for a second. If you didn't have to exile it, you could just Sun Titan this thing over and over and over again and just survive wrath after wrath after wrath. So they had to make it to where you had to exile it.
At number 5, we have Debt to the Deathless, and let's face it, this card is not very imaginative, but what it is Exsanguinate number 2 for black-white decks. And you can never have too many ways to have an outlet for your Cabal Coffers Urborg and kill the table.
At number 4, we have Gaze of Granite. Gaze of Granite is what a lot of people are calling the bad Pernicious Deed. Gaze of Granite is really great, and it's a little more of a scalpel, too. First off, you can destroy all permanents, which that includes planeswalkers, that includes artifacts, stuff that you really want to be able to kill sometimes. But if you want it to be like a damnation, you have to pay a lot of mana.
We were talking with some friends earlier about awesome scenarios with Gaze of Granite, and this is a very realistic one. Let me have Sheldred out. She's 7. Gaze of Granite for 6. There's a good chance that you'll be the only one with anything relevant on the board, and you're in a good position to win. That's a very easy scenario to set up. It really lends itself well to those black-green decks, because a lot of them are about, reanimating fatties onto the board, ramping really hard into these great beater win cons. At number 3, we have Obsidat's Aid, and I'm gonna level with you guys. This is probably my favorite card in the set. I know I'm not exactly the most interesting Magic player in the world when a Reanimate is my favorite card, but you can do anything. I can reanimate my creature. I can get back my Sorin. I can get back my Nicol Bolas. Let me get back my Gilded Drake. You can get a land back if you feel like. If you just really need that Maze of Ith back, you can do that. It may not be very interesting, but it's one of those cards that's honestly probably a long time coming, and it's just wonderful.
At number 2, we have Notion Thief. And I love Notion Thief. Notion Thief sees someone playing their Sphinx's Revelation, or their Blue Sun Zenith, or even a Consecrated Sphinx, and they say, I'm going to steal the cards you're drawing right now. And that is just so cool. A lot of players complain about Consecrated Sphinx, because every blue deck plays it. But Notion Thief comes in, and he just completely negates Consecrated Sphinx. He's almost a counterspell in a weird sort of way, that whenever someone goes and plays a card draw spell, you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna Notion Thief that and take all your cards, because he has Flash, which really pushes this guy over the top.
At number 1, we have Progenitor Mimic. This guy's awesome. I mean, first off, this guy says, hello, clone me, so you can have more Progenitor Mimics because the more the merrier. Let's just copy all the creatures on the battlefield, let's make all these tokens. Even though Stolen Identity was really pushing the envelope as far as really cool clone cards, Progenitor Mimic might have just topped that. This guy is ridiculous, and we could sit here all day and think of awesome scenarios involving Progenitor Mimic.
One of the many things you can do with Progenitor Mimic is a very easily assembled infinite turn combo. For one, you can play, obviously, like Time Stretch or Time Warp. You play Eternal Witness or Mnemonic Wall, then you just Progenitor Mimic that card. You return that Time Stretch back to your hand. You then play that Time Stretch. At the beginning of your next turn, Progenitor Mimic will then become a copy of that Mnemonic Wall, entering the battlefield, giving you that Time Warp back again, and you just keep going. Progenitor Mimic does it all by itself. I want to play blue-green just so I can play Progenitor Mimic. This card is that cool. And so that is our top 10 most relevant cards from Dragon's Maze. And finally, we're going to take a look at the Dragon's Maze Maze Runners.
Which might be the real top 10 most relevant cards in Commander from Dragon's Maze.
Yeah, because some of them are just awesome, and a couple of them are bad eggs. And our first one is a bad egg. Amara Tandris. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on Amara Tandris, because I think everyone has had the discussion of Amara Tandris sucks.
So the problem with Amara Tandris, first off, is that she's a 5/7 creature who's completely vanilla, so that sucks. But the main thing is that she costs 7 mana. That's awful. If I'm paying 7 mana, I want something super powerful. I want Thraxamundar. I want Sheldred. But then, her ability is stupid, because you're playing creature tokens. You should be owning face-it combat. If you're not, you're doing it wrong. The one redeeming thing about Amara Tandris is I love her name, and I think her artwork is absolutely beautiful. But then all that does is make me more disappointed that she sucks.
Next up, Ixava Rakdos Blood Witch. And Xava is arguably another kind of bad egg. She's really cool. I love the First Strike haste. She's so aggressive. Very similar to Rakdos in that sense, which I really like. That the card design is really good. And she works great with Unleash. The problem is, you're probably not going to be playing much Unleash in Commander. Probably not.
I really wish that Xava said that creatures you control have Unleash, and then said if they have +1/+1 counter, they have haste. I think that would have really pushed her, because black-red aggro is still kind of iffy, but I think that would have really made for a fun, aggressive deck.
Xava, unlike Amara Tandris, who was just poorly designed, Xava was really well designed. She just doesn't quite make it into Commander very well.
Next we have Lavinia of the 10th. She is really good. First off, she's 4/4 for 5 with Prot Red. She's fairly aggressively costed. I mean, she's 5. That's completely reasonable. And she detains everything with converted mana cost of 4 or less. So if you have to worry about fast aggro or even mana rocks or anything like that in your play group, she's really awesome. And you're in blue-white, so you just get to flicker her.
Next up, we have Melek Izzet Paragon, and here in about a week, we're going to be doing an awesome Melek versus Rurik Thar gameplay. And Melek, I've been trying to build a deck around him that's just all instants and sorceries, and it's been pretty challenging.
To be fair, if you were building it for multiplayer, it would be really powerful.
But after the gameplay, I want to actually build a deck and do it still with no creatures. Just Melek as my only creature. Obviously play with some mana rocks and some like Sensei's Divine Top, Crystal Ball, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've really seen firsthand how powerful Melek is. If you have anything on the top of your library, it doesn't matter if it's a stupid brainstorm. He's a flavor hit. He's a power hit. I think he's probably one of the better legendary creatures in the set. And next we have my favorite legendary creature in the set, Rurik Thar. Normally, I'm not much of a green-red beats kind of girl, but Rurik Thar is ridiculous. Once the video is done, I'm going to keep Rurik Thar, and I'm going to keep him all creatures, except for maybe a Primal Surge, because that'd be ridiculous. He really forces control players, and honestly just anyone, to stop and think, is this worth casting? Because even in Commander, 6 damage is ridiculous.
This guy has reach. He blocks flyers. This guy is a 6/6 fatty for 6. He's coming down, he's beating hard, he's coming at your face, there's nothing you can do about it, and you have to take 6 damage before you can even answer him. I mean, seriously, Rurik Thar is insane. He's so good. I hate him. Next up, we have Mirko Vosk Mind Drinker, and the name is just so great. Mirko Vosk is the mill general that all the mill lovers have been waiting for. It is ridiculous having a Mind Funeral on a body. Let me Mind Funeral you again and again and again and again and again and again and again. You just strap some equipment onto this guy, make him really hard to remove, and you will just tear someone's library apart.
Yeah, I agree. Do I want to play Mirko Vosk? Not particularly. Is he something that people who love Mill want to play, and is he just well-costed, well-designed, does something that's easy for people to understand? Yeah. So he's pretty much a hit. Next we have my second favorite legendary creature in the set, Tajik, Blade of the Legion. This guy is sweet. He's indestructible. I see indestructible written on a legendary creature, and I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Not to mention, he has Battalion, and when he attacks, he gets +5/+5. So this guy's a 2/2 for 4 that is swinging as a 7/7. Now you guys are saying, well, you need Battalion for that. You're playing Boros. You're playing red and white. 2 colors that have not only a lot of cheap creatures, a lot of cheap good creatures. This guy rewards you for playing cheap, efficient beaters. And that is the definition of Boros.
Next up we have Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. And this is another creature that a lot of people have been talking about being kind of a disappointment. Let's take a look at her for a second. She's a 4/4 for 7, and we were talking about Amara Tandris earlier being 7. And we were like, we need something really fantastic with 7. We need a really awesome creature if we're going to be paying 7 for it. Well, what do we get with Teysa? She's protection from creatures, which means she survives combat all day long. She's a Rattlesnake card that has protection. She can swing in, deal general damage all day long. Your opponents don't want to attack you because they're going to lose their creatures and they're going to have you a creature. When you really think about her cost to what she does, you're paying a good price for what you're getting.
Creatures, you don't have to worry about them. That's really what Teysa says at the end of the day. She says no to aggro of any sort. Second to last, we have Verils the Scar-Striped, and I probably mispronounced his name. I really don't care at this point. I'm tired of trying to say this guy's name. This guy does everything you need him to do. Okay, he regenerates himself. That's super powerful. But his regeneration ability is a free sack outlet. And after you sacrifice to the creature, you can, I don't know, scavenge it to put counters on Varol's. This guy, in the, circular design of everything that he does contributing to something else he does, really reminds me of Trading Post. And on top of just this design that I absolutely adore, he encourages you to play dudes. There are a lot of awesome dudes in black-green, so all around this guy is just a great general.
And last, but certainly not least, Boral of the Hulklade. This is another one of the cards a lot of people were kind of disappointed with. He's 1/4. When you really think about it, he works great with the Simic of the now and the Simic of the past as well. Also, he kind of gives a proliferate theme a go, finally, on a general, which I think is really unique. To be honest, at the end of the day, if I wanted to play Simic, I'd still want to play cards like Momor Vig more. But, as Boral, as one of the 99, Boral makes Prime Speaker twice as big. If you're playing a +1/+1 counter deck, or a Simic deck, Boral should go into your deck. I will say it right now, you should play Boral.
I look at Boral the same way that I look at Mirko Vosk. Would I want to play him? No. Would someone who loves the kind of thing that he does want to play him? Yes. Does that make him a success as a legendary creature and a general? Definitely yes.
Well, that wraps up our Dragon's Maze set review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys agreed or disagreed with anything that we said, go ahead and tell us in the comment section below. My name is Karsten.
And I'm Brianne.
And as always, thanks for watching.